we saw a small boat gently gliding over the calm waters of the sea, heading towards the serene and peaceful island of Torishirima. The boat is about to dock at the pier, but on board there is a boy who is contemplating the clear sky, carefully watching the seagulls that fly around. As he watches them in silence, he mutters to himself that it makes him feel like a wounded migratory bird. This extremely specific reflection seems to respond to an inner melancholy, as if it were translating the silent pain of a broken heart. "Oh, my friend, what a drama," he whispers with a certain exaggeration, as if his entire existence had been ruined by a small setback, like, for example, the misfortune of breaking a nail. He then realizes how peculiar it is to engage in such a deep conversation with an unknown elderly lady, which makes him prefer to turn his attention to the landscape that unfolds in front of him. At that moment, a butterfly with a luminous, almost ethereal appearance floats before your eyes and disappears, carried by the wind. As he turns his gaze towards the port, his eyes come across the figure of a stunning woman, whose presence impacts him in such a way that his face distorts with amazement as if her eyes had become square. Finally, the boat docks. Harry observes the island with remarkable attention. There is something familiar about that place. Although he has never been there before, a sudden and deep feeling of nostalgia invades him. It is at that exact moment that the mysterious lady reappears, as if following him, and asks him an intriguing question. What was that last thing the nose said? Already showing some exhaustion with the interaction, the boy protests that she seems to be reading his thoughts. With an almost provocative serenity, she responds, "If it bothers you, then you should avoid thinking out loud." Curious, Harry wonders if she has ever missed a place she has never been to. The lady looks at him tenderly and answers yes, that this feeling has a name and is more common than he imagines. He then hesitates and confesses that perhaps he expressed himself poorly, as he actually wanted to refer to Yabu. As if the conversation hadn't happened, she says goodbye coldly, says she doesn't like him and walks away. Later, the boy is led by Misaki, who presents herself as responsible for him during his stay. She accompanies him to the place where he will be staying, an old warehouse renovated to serve as a room. With slight embarrassment, she apologizes for the musty smell and the mess. Kai, with his usual poetic touch, responds that he doesn't care, as that environment faithfully reflects his emotional state. He is, after all, an injured migratory bird. Misaki observes him strangely, as if saying with her gaze, "What's wrong with this strange figure?" She mentions that another relative resides there, but is currently absent, promising to introduce him soon. Harry throws herself on the floor of her new room, permeated with the odor of stagnant damp and accumulated sadness, and gazes at the ceiling. The uncomfortable smell of the environment bothers him, but somehow it also conveys an inexplicable feeling of comfort. Memories begin to emerge in your mind. Once, his grandmother Kyoko had sent him a letter, a crumpled postcard, with a picture of the island of Torishirima. The lady's house was in disarray, as she spent her days traveling the world as a free soul. Someone needed to put order in that address, and, evidently, who was in charge of the mission? Precisely the only young man without classes, without a job, without a social life, that is, Harry, also known as the king of existential drama and excessive metaphors. While he is lost in these thoughts, tiredness overwhelms him, and he falls asleep right there, like a dropped stone. In his dream, he sees himself sinking into a pool, out of breath, unable to surface, feeling the pressure of the water dragging him down. At the moment when there seems to be no more salvation, he wakes up, sweaty, confused, and with a parched throat like his plans for the future. It's getting dark. The sky takes on shades of orange and purple. He grumbles intensely and decides to look for Misaki, hoping to get something worthy of being called dinner. With somewhat forced enthusiasm, she informs him that they only have some Maruhan instant soups. Outraged, he protests, stating that his stomach deserves respect. Misaki, out of patience, throws him the motorcycle keys and says that if he wants something better, he should go look for it himself. Without thinking much, Harry sets off on her little culinary adventure. You will find a modest and welcoming inn, with wooden tables and a delicious aroma in the air. He sits down, looks at the menu written on a blackboard and asks with good humor, "A happy menu, please." The chef looks at him with an enigmatic look, goes to the kitchen and returns with a steaming plate of chicken and egg broth. Confused, Harry says, "But I ordered a happy menu." Without losing his composure, the chef replies, "The chicken and the egg died together. It's a happy ending." And, in the face of such wisdom, there is no possible argument. He devours the dish and, to be honest, it was really delicious. With her belly full, she decides to walk a little around the island. The streets are empty, the air is fresh, and the dim lighting of the houses barely reveals the way. After wandering aimlessly, he arrives on the outskirts of an elementary school, certainly the most inappropriate place to be at that time of night. However, once again, life surprises him. You hear a noise. When you look through the bars, you see a swimming pool. Without permission, cross the gates and approach with caution. Inside the water, a girl is submerged, holding her breath. "Who are you?" he asks. "I'm Harry," he responds nervously, and returns the question. The girl says she is practicing swimming. She looks uncomfortable, and no wonder. Imagine yourself alone, in a bikini, at night, when a stranger comes up and starts talking as if it were something ordinary. Noticing the discomfort, he tries to remedy the situation, explaining that he got lost and is looking for the Kato house. The girl retorts, saying that perhaps he is referring to the Sakajara residence. He insists no, but she persists. As the argument goes nowhere, and noticing that the situation is becoming awkward, Harry decides to leave. Before leaving, the girl sighs and gives him instructions to return. He thanks her and asks why she is swimming at night. She warns that this is dangerous. What if a boy with dubious intentions showed up to watch her? She looks at him sternly. "Dosoi," she replies coldly. Back at the house, Misaki is irritated because Harry ate alone and didn't bring her anything. He smiles, embarrassed, and admits that the meal was delicious. Ask the meaning of the word dosoi. The answer comes from a soft voice. It's another girl, with purple hair, watching him from the doorway. She greets him with "good morning" and introduces herself as Omi, the other relative who lives in the house. Harry, still a little sleepy, returns the introduction, and she informs him that breakfast is served. He finds a plate of fried rice and eyes it suspiciously. However, something inside tells him that this summer will be anything but ordinary. Once the meal is over, it's time to share the household chores. As no one is there on vacation, they organize a blackboard with the days of the week and the responsibilities: taking out the trash, washing the dishes, taking care of the laundry, cleaning rooms and bathrooms. Each one makes a different facial expression when drawing a task. Omi tries to manipulate the results with grimaces, but ends up revealing his plans out loud. Harry, of course, hears everything. What's wrong with that family that can't keep their thoughts inside their heads? They repeat the draw, and Omi loses again. On the third try, with an impeccable poker face, she finally starts winning. After that, Nomi says goodbye and goes out to play in the street. Harry, in turn, questions Misaki about what he should do, but she simply replies, "Go for a walk." Sometime later, she offers to help him, but for now, she asks him to go explore the island and see if he finds anyone interesting. He winks at him in a complicit way. Harry, intrigued by the suggestion, follows his advice and, by pure coincidence, comes across a young girl discreetly blinking under the shade of a tree. The breeze coming from the coast gently caresses Agustin de Porras, who finds comfort in the shade of the small tree. Next to him rests a peculiar creature, a hybrid between a cat, a fox, and an alien-looking being, which strongly resembles a Pokemon. Harry, curious, tries to decipher what species it is, but is then surprised by an unexpected event. The young woman, who until then seemed to be just resting, staggers and collapses onto the soft, inviting grass. Harry, taken by his usual curiosity and signs of, to say the least, inconvenient behavior, sees this as an opportunity and pretends to help her, but ends up just holding back the drool that drips from the corner of his mouth. The girl suddenly awakens and finds a stranger watching her attentively. Even worse, she realizes that he is in direct contact with her breast. Outraged, she reacts firmly, and, in an ironic tone, says that, if he intends to abuse her vulnerable condition, she should at least do it with more dexterity, pushing him with significant force. After the episode, the tension between them decreases. Harry tries to alleviate the situation, explaining the context of the scene they are in, so that she understands where she is and what is happening. He also asks her not to be so hostile, because, according to his words, his heart is in a delicate state and he feels offended by such distrust. The young woman, in turn, responds coldly, declaring that, if one day she wakes up and sees him standing over her, she hopes that he will respect her and not dare to bother her. Harry, embarrassed, tries to apologize, but she interrupts him, stating that she just wants him to let her sleep in peace, without inappropriate jokes or advances. "I'm not asking for much," she concludes. At that moment, Harry realizes, with alarm, that it is already 2 o'clock in the afternoon and urgently exclaims that he is late for work. He leaves hurriedly, accompanied by his strange pet, the alien creature called Inari. Before leaving, Harry checks the time on his watch and is surprised to find that it is, in fact, exactly 2 o'clock. It is intriguing. How did the girl know, if she never looked at a watch? Then, he heads to a small pier, where he begins to express one of his famous reflections out loud poetic monologues that he cultivates with fervor. At that moment, a wave crashes against the rocks and splashes intensely over him, drenching him from head to toe. As a form of fan service for the female audience watching him, he removes his wet shirt and hangs it on a makeshift clothesline attached to his motorcycle. When he decides to return home, he comes across another man walking calmly along the road completely naked, just like him. Surprised, Harry approaches him and asks who he is. The man, confused or provocative, just says that he, Harry, shouldn't be dressed like that. He probably meant the opposite, that he shouldn't be naked. Suddenly, a shot passes close to Harry's face, leaving him in a state of alert. He realizes that someone fired from an observation tower, without any prior warning, just like a foreign police approach. A young woman, armed with a water pistol, appears and declares that it is forbidden to walk around naked outside the bathing area, demanding that they get dressed or face the consequences. Confused, Harry tries to understand the situation, while the other boy reveals that it is a kind of hunting game. The girl shoots again, and the stranger orders Harry to escape as quickly as possible. He obeys, leaving the stranger behind, being hit by jets of water as he rolls across the floor. Back at his grandmother's house, Harry is welcomed by his mother who, although short in stature, has a provocative personality. She watches him shirtless and seems to enjoy what she sees. He comments that the local custom of wearing skimpy clothing seems to have influenced him. Then he asks him to get dressed and informs him that a package has arrived. Inside the box is an envelope with photographs of the swim team. When he sees them, he asks if, by any chance, he belongs to the club. Harry says no, that he was actually part of the men's swimsuit club. Faced with the strangeness, she decides to investigate with her jacket whether such a club really exists, but when she returns, Harry has already left.